Hey there, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you wished you had just kept your mouth shut? I know I have more times than I'd like to admit. It's a common experience we all share, but the truth is, knowing when to be silent is a skill that can save you a lot of trouble in the long run. Today I want to share with you 5 situations where it's always best to keep your thoughts to yourself and let silence be your ally. First and foremost, when you're angry, it's crucial to hold your tongue. We've all been there something, or someone pushes our buttons, and we feel that surge of emotion rising up, urging us to lash out. But here's the thing, words spoken in anger are rarely productive. They're like arrows you can't take back once they've been fired, and they often lead to regret and damaged relationships. When you feel that heat of anger building inside you, take a step back, breathe deeply, and give yourself time to cool off. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. Secondly, when you're in the presence of someone who's grieving, silence can be the most powerful form of support. Whether they've lost a loved one, gone through a breakup, or experienced any kind of profound loss, trying to find the right words to comfort them can be incredibly challenging. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply be there, offering a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on. Your quiet presence can speak volumes, letting them know that they're not alone in their pain and that you're there for them no matter what. Another situation where silence is golden is when you're tempted to gossip. It's all too easy to get caught up in the thrill of sharing juicy tidbits about others, especially when everyone around you seems to be doing it. But gossiping is a dangerous game, one that can quickly spiral out of control and cause real harm to people's reputations and relationships. When you find yourself in a conversation that's veering into gossip territory, be the one to steer it back on course or simply excuse yourself. Remember, if you wouldn't want someone saying it about you behind your back, it's best not to say it about others. Fourth on the list is when you're in a heated argument, particularly with someone you care about. It's normal for tempers to flare and voices to rise when you're passionate about something, but there comes a point where continuing to argue becomes counterproductive. If you find yourself going around in circles, rehashing the same points over and over again without any resolution in sight, it might be time to take a break. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is agree to disagree and give each other some space to cool off and reflect. You can always revisit the issue later when emotions aren't running quite so high. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it's essential to be silent when you're unsure about something. We live in a world that often prizes quick responses and decisive action, but the reality is, there are times when we simply don't have all the information we need to make an informed decision or offer a meaningful contribution. In those moments, it takes courage and humility to admit that you don't know, to ask for more time or more data before weighing in. It's far better to be silent and thoughtful than to rush in with half-baked ideas or opinions that you might later regret. Of course, knowing when to be silent is just one piece of the puzzle. Equally important is knowing how to break that silence when the time is right. When you do choose to speak up, whether it's to offer comfort, to stand up for what you believe in, or to share your ideas and insights, do so with intention and care. Choose your words wisely and deliver them with kindness and respect. At the end of the day, navigating the complex dance of communication is a lifelong journey, one that requires equal parts self-awareness, empathy, and discernment. By learning to embrace silence in the right moments, you give yourself the space to listen, to reflect, and to grow. And when you do speak, you'll find that your words carry more weight and impact because they come from a place of thoughtfulness and authenticity. So the next time you find yourself in one of these 5 situations, when you're angry, when someone is grieving, when gossip is swirling, when an argument is heating up, or when you're unsure, remember the power of silence. Take a moment to pause, to breathe, and to listen, both to others and to your own inner wisdom. You might be surprised at how much you learn and how much more effective you become in your interactions with others. In a world that's often noisy and chaotic, silence can be a precious gift, one that we give to ourselves and to those around us. It's a way of creating space for reflection, for healing, and for deeper understanding. By cultivating the skill of knowing when to be silent, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and new ways of being in the world. Of course, being silent isn't always easy. It can feel uncomfortable, even scary at times, to hold our tongues when every fiber of our being is urging us to speak up. But like any skill, it gets easier with practice. Start small, by catching yourself in those moments when you're about to say something impulsive or reactive and simply taking a breath instead. Over time, you'll find that the pause becomes more natural, more instinctive. And as you become more comfortable with silence, you may find that it starts to permeate other areas of your life as well. You may become a better listener, more attuned to the subtleties and nuances of the people and the world around you. You may find that you're less likely to get caught up in drama or negativity because you've learned to step back and observe rather than react. And you may discover a new sense of inner peace and clarity as you learn to trust the wisdom of your own quiet mind. Ultimately, the power of silence is about more than just avoiding trouble or keeping the peace. It's about creating space for something deeper and more meaningful to emerge, whether that's a solution to a problem, a new insight or idea, or simply a sense of connection and understanding with another human being. So embrace the silence, my friends. Let it be your teacher, your ally, and your friend, and watch as it transforms not only your relationships and your interactions with others, but also your relationship with yourself and your own inner world. In a culture that often celebrates noise and busyness, choosing silence can feel like a radical act. But it's an act of courage, of self-awareness, and of deep respect for yourself, for others, and for the mysteries and wonders of life itself. So the next time you find yourself in one of those 5 situations, or any situation where you're not sure what to say, or do remember the power of silence. Trust it, embrace it, and let it guide you towards greater wisdom, compassion, and understanding. And know that in the quiet spaces between your words, there is a whole world waiting to be discovered, a world of depth, beauty, and endless possibility. As we continue to explore the power of silence, it's worth diving deeper into each of those 5 situations to unpack the wisdom and the lessons they hold. Let's start with anger, that fiery emotion that can so easily consume us if we let it. When we're angry, it's easy to feel like we're losing control, like our emotions are driving the bus, and we're just along for the ride. But the truth is, we always have a choice in how we respond to our anger. We can choose to lash out, to say things we'll later regret, to let our anger dictate our actions and our words. Or we can choose to be silent, to take a step back and give ourselves the space to process our emotions in a healthier way. One of the keys to managing anger is to understand where it's coming from. Often, anger is a secondary emotion, a mask for something deeper and more vulnerable underneath. It might be fear or hurt or frustration, or a sense of powerlessness. When we can identify the root cause of our anger, it becomes easier to address it in a constructive way, rather than simply reacting to the surface-level emotion. Another important aspect of managing anger is to have a toolbox of strategies for calming ourselves down in the moment. This might include deep breathing, counting to 10, or even physically removing ourselves from the situation if possible. The goal is to create enough space between the trigger and our response to allow our rational mind to catch up with our emotional mind. Of course, being silent in the face of anger doesn't mean we have to swallow our feelings or pretend everything is okay. It's important to find healthy ways to express and process our anger, whether that's through journaling, exercise, or talking things out with a trusted friend or therapist. The key is to do so in a way that doesn't cause harm to ourselves or others. Moving on to the second situation, being present for someone who's grieving, the power of silence takes on a different flavor. When someone we care about is going through a painful loss, it's natural to want to fix things, to say something that will make it all better. But the reality is, there are no magic words that can take away the pain of grief. In fact, sometimes our attempts to comfort can actually make things worse if we say the wrong thing or fail to acknowledge the depth of their suffering. That's where silence comes in. By simply being present, By offering our quiet companionship and support, we create a safe space for the grieving person to feel whatever they need to feel without judgment or expectation. We let them know that we see them, that we hear them, and that we're not going anywhere, no matter how messy or uncomfortable things get. Of course, being silent doesn't mean being passive or disengaged. We can still offer practical support, like bringing over a meal or helping with errands. We can still listen actively, giving the person our full attention and letting them know that their words and feelings matter. But we do so without trying to fix or change or rush the process of grief, recognizing that it's a journey that looks different for everyone. In many ways, being present for someone who's grieving is an act of courage and vulnerability. It requires us to sit with our own discomfort, to face the reality of loss and pain head on. It means being willing to witness someone else's suffering without trying to change it or make it go away. And it means trusting that our presence alone can be a source of comfort and strength, even in the darkest of times. When it comes to gossip, the third situation on our list, the power of silence takes on a more proactive role. It's about recognizing the harm that gossip can cause and making a conscious choice not to participate in it, even when it's swirling all around us. Gossip can be incredibly seductive, especially when it's about someone we don't like or who has hurt us in some way. It can feel like a way to bond with others, to feel superior or in control. But the truth is, gossip is a form of violence, a way of wielding words as weapons to tear someone else down. When we engage in gossip, we're not just harming the person being talked about. We're also harming ourselves by eroding our own integrity and contributing to a culture of negativity and mistrust. We're feeding a cycle of hurt and division rather than working towards understanding and healing. So how do we break free from the grip of gossip? It starts with awareness, with noticing when we're tempted to join in or when we find ourselves on the receiving end of someone else's gossip. It means being willing to stand up and say, "I'm not comfortable talking about this," or "I don't think this conversation is helpful or productive." It also means cultivating a sense of empathy and compassion both for ourselves and for others. When we can see the humanity in everyone, even those who have hurt us or those we disagree with, it becomes harder to engage in gossip or other forms of harmful speech. We start to recognize that everyone is fighting their own battles, and that we're all deserving of respect and kindness. Of course, breaking the habit of gossip isn't always easy, especially if it's something we've been doing for a long time. But like any habit, it can be changed with practice and persistence. We can start by catching ourselves in the act and making a different choice in the moment. We can seek out more positive and uplifting conversations and surround ourselves with people who share our values of kindness and integrity. The fourth situation, being silent in the midst of a heated argument, is perhaps one of the most challenging on our list. When we're in the throes of an argument, especially with someone we care about deeply, it can feel like everything is on the line. We want to be heard, to be understood, to win the battle of words and prove our point. But the truth is, most arguments are not productive conversations. They're power struggles, fueled by ego and defensiveness and the need to be right. They're a way of digging in our heels and refusing to budge, rather than working together to find a solution or a common ground. That's where the power of silence comes in. By choosing to be silent, to take a step back and disengage from the argument, we create space for something different to emerge. We give ourselves and the other person a chance to cool down, to reflect on what's really important, and to approach the conversation from a place of greater clarity and compassion. Of course, being silent in an argument doesn't mean giving up or letting the other person win. It's not about avoiding conflict altogether or pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Rather, it's about recognizing when a conversation has become unproductive and making a conscious choice to shift gears. Sometimes that might mean saying something like, "I care about you in this relationship, but I don't think this conversation is going anywhere good right now. Can we take a break and come back to it later when we've both had a chance to calm down?" Other times it might mean simply taking a few deep breaths or counting to 10 in your head before responding. The key is to approach the conversation with a spirit of curiosity and openness, rather than defensiveness and rigidity. It's about being willing to listen, really listen, to the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it. It's about looking for points of connection and common ground, rather than focusing on the areas of disagreement. And it's about recognizing that the goal of any healthy argument is not to win, but to understand and to grow. When we can approach conflict with that mindset, we open ourselves up to the possibility of real transformation, both in our relationships and in ourselves. Finally, the fifth situation on our list, being silent when we're unsure about something, is perhaps the most universal of all. We've all found ourselves in situations where we're not quite sure what to say or do, where we feel like we're in over our heads or out of our depth. And in those moments, the temptation can be strong to fake it till we make it, to pretend we know more than we do, or to offer opinions and advice that we're not really qualified to give. But the truth is, there's great wisdom in admitting when we don't know something. It takes courage and humility to say, I'm not sure, I need more information before I can weigh in on this. It means being willing to be vulnerable, to expose the gaps in our knowledge and experience, and to trust that others will respect us for our honesty and authenticity. In fact, being silent when we're unsure can actually be a sign of great strength and intelligence. It shows that we're not afraid to learn, to grow, to admit when we need help or guidance. It demonstrates a willingness to listen and to be open to new ideas and perspectives, rather than assuming we already have all the answers. Of course, being silent when we're unsure doesn't mean never speaking up or never taking a stand. There are times when it's important to voice our opinions and beliefs, even if we're not 100% certain about them. But it does mean being thoughtful and deliberate about when and how we choose to do so. It means taking the time to educate ourselves, to seek out reliable sources of information, and to consider multiple viewpoints before forming our own conclusions. It means being willing to change our minds when presented with new evidence or arguments, rather than stubbornly clinging to our preconceived notions. And it means recognizing that even the most knowledgeable and experienced among us still have room to learn and grow. None of us have all the answers, and that's okay. In fact, it's what makes life so rich and fascinating, the endless opportunity to discover new things about ourselves, about others, and about the world around us. As we navigate the complex landscape of communication and relationships, the power of silence can be a guiding light, a tool for greater clarity, compassion, and wisdom. Whether we're facing anger, grief, gossip, conflict, or uncertainty, being silent at the right moments can help us to connect more deeply with ourselves and with others. But it's important to remember that silence is not a passive act. It's not about withdrawing from the world or avoiding the challenges and joys of human interaction. Rather, it's about engaging more fully and authentically, about being present and attentive and open to the richness of each moment. And it's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful thing we can say is nothing at all. In the space between our words, in the quiet stillness of our hearts and minds, there is a whole universe waiting to be explored, a source of wisdom and insight that is always available to us, if only we're willing to listen. So let us cultivate the art of silence, not as a way of hiding or holding back, but as a way of showing up more fully and lovingly in the world. Let us be silent when it serves us and others, and let us speak up when our voices are needed to heal, to inspire, to create positive change. And let us trust that in the end it is not just our words, but the quality of our presence, the depth of our listening, and the generosity of our hearts that will make the greatest difference in the lives of those around us. May we all find the courage and the grace to embrace silence in its many forms, and to let it guide us towards greater wisdom, compassion, and connection always. Thank you.